Very good evening. It's 8 o'clock. I'm Tony Ndoro live from Johannesburg. These are your top stories this evening. Former President Jacob Zuma granted leave to appeal 10 million rand legal cost order. Ajay Gupta submits an affidavit denying ever meeting Mcebisi Jonas as Judge Zondo dismisses Lynn Brown's application to cross-examine Jonas. And of course, we have your sport and business news coming up a little bit later on with Devin Murugan and my man Jeffrey Stevens.
Good evening, Tony. Great to see you. Coming up, the PSL will seek legal advice on their conflict with SAFA over the OUTsurance controversial sponsorship deal.
And Tony, the Reserve Bank keeps interest rates steady, but it comes with a warning from the Reserve Bank governor.
All right, thanks, guys. You bring us those stories a little bit later on in the bulletin. To our top story now, the High Court in Pretoria today granted former President Jacob Zuma leave to appeal or to apply for permission to appeal the personal cost order made against him in his failed bid to challenge the Public Protector's State of Capture report. Zuma applied to intervene in his personal capacity after President Cyril Ramaphosa withdrew the appeal application which Zuma filed when he was still in office. It's been a long day in court for our reporter Aaron Bates, who joins me now here in studio to unpack the day's proceedings. Aaron, good to see you again. Just my whole spiel just now was very complicated. Take us right back to the beginning. Where did all this start?
So I think where we can start with this is the fact that President Jacob Zuma challenged the remedial action in the Public Protector's State of Capture report. And that was the remedial action where she said, set up this Judicial Commission of Inquiry, which of course now is finally underway. But at the end of last year, the High Court ordered that he should personally pay costs for fighting that remedial action and lumped him with a legal bill of an estimated 10 million rand. He then challenged that as president. His successor, Cyril Ramaphosa, reneged on that challenge as president, and then Zuma, in his personal capacity, applied yet again through an intervention application, and that's what we heard today. Okay, so is former President Jacob Zuma, is he off the hook? How much of a victory is this for him today? So a lot of people have said that today has been a great victory for him because the EFF, among other political parties, including COPE, the UDM and the DA, had challenged his initial application, this intervention application for leave to appeal. So technically speaking, it is a win for Zuma. He did have the right to now make his arguments on why the appeal should be granted, but it's such a minor little step in the great long legal chain that still needs to follow that it's arguably a really small fry. So this matter still has got to go to the Constitutional Court? No, what it'll do is go to the Supreme Court of Appeal if permission for application for leave to appeal is granted. And we're not there yet. All we've heard is Zuma's argument on why he shouldn't have to pay personally. He said that he was never against the Public Protector's remedial action, only that he had concerns about the legality of it. He's shown his good faith by setting up the Commission of Inquiry, and really he shouldn't be mulcted or joined personally for the costs. If he loses the appeal at the Supreme Court of Appeal, does he have to pay for this hearing, is this particular appeal today? So the cost will be more than the 10 million rand at the end of the day. Well, what will happen is if he doesn't win, he's going to have to pay for the procedures that have been underway in the High Court now, and we won't even get to that Supreme Court of Appeal matter. But he will still then be liable for the 10 million rand in his personal capacity, and this is the thing that he's fighting. All right, you've made sense of it. I hope so. I think I understand a little bit more. Thank you so much, Aaron. Great one. All right, now Ajay Gupta has denied ever meeting Mcebisi Jonas in Saxonwold on the 23rd of October 2015. He submitted an affidavit to the State Capture Commission. Gupta says he was at the Oak Bay offices in Sandton during the time Jonas claims they met in Saxonwold. Now, on day 3 of the inquiry, Jonas gave details of a meeting with the Gupta brothers. He also testified that Ajay Gupta offered him 600 million rand and the position of finance minister. Gupta denies offering him the money and claims he didn't have any influence over the appointment of cabinet members. Meanwhile, former Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown's application to cross-examine witnesses at the State Capture Inquiry has been dismissed. Commission Chair Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo admonished Brown's lawyers for not offering her side of the story amid allegations she was a Gupta lackey. Brown doesn't dispute she had a relationship with the family, but disputes claims she did their bidding.
Mr. Jonas said that Mr. Gupta mentioned that they work with her, appreciating the terms of reference, appreciating what she said in her statement to request to cross-examine Mr. Jonas. The answer would have been there, Chairperson. This has been subtracted by the fact that...
Your time is up.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Ms. Lynn Brown's application is dismissed. She has not put up her version.
Now, COSATU's 13th National Congress is undertaken to tackle job losses. The Union Federation is also warning that the upcoming job summit should be more than just a talk shop. At the same time, Zingiswa Losi addressed the Congress for the first time as COSATU president. Leranzo Temba has more.
History in the making. COSATU's new sheriff is in town. And she's talking tough on inequalities in the workplace.
Women within the ranks of this radical trade union movement are ready to take the responsibility at the sharpest end of the struggles of emancipation of all women in our society.
With the planned job summit, COSATU's warned against it being just another talk shop.
We are saying to the ANC government that the job summit must not be a public relation exercise for the bosses.
The 2,500 delegates resolved to continue unifying the alliance and campaign for the ANC at the polls. COSATU is also demanding a commission of inquiry into the enforcement of health and safety laws. It believes government is soft on companies that don't comply with safety laws. Leranzo Temba, Johannesburg.
The DA is yet to decide on a way forward after Athol Trollip's urgent court application to overturn his ousting as Nelson Mandela Bay mayor was dismissed. The UDM's Mongameli Bobani was in court and showed his delight with that decision. DA leader Mcebisi says an appeal is not off the cards as the party will first study the court judgment. At the same time, the DA has also announced seasoned politicians Joe Maglua and Jane Sitole as its premier candidates for the 2019 elections in the Northwest and Mpumalanga, respectively. The candidates say they plan to tackle patronage, service delivery and unemployment. The DA will be launching its election campaign at the weekend.
How is it a victory for the people? A party with two people has now got the mayoralty, and the first act that they do is they go out, they look for tenders, they suspend the municipal and manager, and then they put Andile Lungisa, who is a known criminal. We should stand together as a people of South Africa. How and say, what was the will of the people in Nelson Mandela Bay? The people did not vote for corruption, they rejected it. And therefore, ultimately, we will continue to fight this battle. We will fight in whatever power and even in opposition. We will stand strong against corruption.
About 140,000 places of worship in South Africa are operating illegally. Religious leaders say many of these are a breeding ground for criminal activities. Now, the Commission for Cultural and Religious Rights says there should be a guiding document for churches. Malungelo Boy reports.
From forcing congregants to eat grass, snakes and rats, leaves and even hair. A CRL Commission probe has found that some religious leaders are not only exploiting people's belief systems, they've also turned places of worship into get-rich-quick schemes. In some cases, illegal churches were found to be the breeding ground of criminal activities, including the sexual assault of female congregants. Now, those gathered here strongly believe a code of conduct for religious leaders has become urgent as the problem has reached crisis levels. Pastor Ray Macaulay will lead the forum dealing with the draft code of conduct for religious leaders.
It's been a disgrace to all of us, and that it's become very, very important for the church now to stand up and to really combat this.
The CRL Commission says this is about allowing the church to hold itself accountable.
All we're saying is that have a code of conduct, enforce that code of conduct, and make sure that anyone who misbehaves is treated accordingly.
There's even support in some quarters for regulation.
We cannot be having loose cannons who come and, the whole structure of our being, citizens of this country, to always being abused by those who have their own destructive agendas. Thank you very much.
Malunge Lupui, Johannesburg.
Other news making headlines today. The controversial 425-page Mwerane Commission of Inquiry report into political killings in KwaZulu-Natal was released today. One of the main recommendations was an urgent investigation into politicians, public officials and business people associated with corruptive activities in the public service. KwaZulu-Natal Premier Willis Mchunu says he's prepared to take tough measures, even declaring a state of emergency to prevent more political killings in the province. The 4 children killed in a house fire in Alexandra on Sunday have been laid to rest. Neighbors, school children and government officials attended the funeral service, but the service went ahead without their mothers. Their 2 sisters were denied permission to attend. The mothers are said to have been at a nearby shebeen when the fire broke out. They have since been arrested for child neglect. Their bail hearing is set for the 28th. If granted bail, it's only then that they'll get to see where their children's remains are buried. Stay with us here on eNews. Coming up, former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's son and 15 other Liberians have been banned from leaving the country after the disappearance of $104 million. But before that, Devin, you're going to bring us some business news.
Yes, indeed. Rates staying steady by the Reserve Bank, but the Reserve Bank governor is putting a warning. We'll tell you about that in a moment.
Welcome back now. Devin Murrigan joins me now for the business news. Devin, the Reserve Bank governor giving us a bit of a warning amid the announcement of the interest rates.
Yes, so the Reserve Bank holding interest rates steady this afternoon. If we just take a look, the repo rate staying at 6.5%. The prime rate you will be paying at banks 10%. That stays steady. But there was a warning this afternoon. The Reserve Bank governor saying that there are inflation risks on the way. When we have risks of price increases, that only increases the chance of us seeing more interest rates. Analyst tells us this evening that more interest rate hikes are yet to come. And remember, all of this coming in the midst of a recession that the country is experiencing. So there were some who may have said before this decision, Tony, well, you know what? Give us a little bit of a break, perhaps just give us a cut and put a little bit more money in our pocket, and perhaps we could stimulate the economy. But the Reserve Bank governor having none of that, it's not his mandate. Let's take a listen to what he says about stimulating the economy.
The risks to growth considered, yes, and our assessment is that the risks to the growth outlook are on the downside. So we did have those deliberations, and you asked, was then consideration for a stimulus? No, there wasn't a consideration for a stimulus because the current stance is stimulatory. So as we are sending, the monetary stance is accommodative. So there was no need from our assessment that monetary policy has room to provide any further stimulus in the current environment.
All right, good news from the Reserve Bank, but how did the Rand react to that announcement?
Actually, pretty favorably, Tony. I mean, so we had two influences on the Rand this afternoon. One, the fact that the Reserve Bank didn't hike rates, that was Rand positive. Yep. But remember, the dollar also weakening this afternoon. So when the dollar weakens, the Rand shows positive. Let's very quickly take a look at the JSE to see what the All Share did this afternoon. So barely just in the positive this afternoon for the local market. You'll see financials gaining because of that strong Rand. That usually happens when the local currency is stronger. Let's take a look at mining shares. The standout there for your resources shares is the platinum industry. So platinum mining shares almost 6% positive. That's just been continuing over the past 3 days. When we take a look at commodities themselves, here are the prices. Gold sitting at $1,206 an ounce, $8.33 for platinum, and that oil price, always important because it affects your petrol price, $78.72 an ounce. You were talking about the Rand a little earlier. Well, when last have you seen this? 14 Rand 27 against the US dollar. As I said, two factors, a weakening dollar and that interest rate decision. Against the euro, 16.79, to the British pound, 18 Rand 91 cents.
Fantastic stuff. Good news for importers. Devin Murugan, thank you so much. Right, let's carry on now in the news making international headlines. 15 Liberians, including the son of former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, have been banned from leaving the country. The group is being investigated for their involvement in the disappearance of $104 million. The cash, which was printed overseas, was meant for Liberia's central bank. The money disappeared last year after passing through the country's main ports. The stash is equivalent to nearly 5% of the country's GDP. All right, thanks for staying with us. Let's go now to Candice, who's at our weather center. Candice, please tell me we'll get a bit of rain this coming weekend.
Well, good evening. Not yet during the day on Friday, but there's a teeny tiny chance of rainfall. In fact, a few thundershowers into Gauteng, but only late on Friday night. Now, today we saw cloudy and cool weather over the eastern part of South Africa. Quite a change in the weather after the hot and dry conditions over the last couple of days. A bit of that cloud remains over the northeastern parts through to Friday morning, and we're expecting dry and warmer conditions over the western part of South Africa. Here are a few of those thunderstorms that I was talking about, mainly forming over the northwest and the Free State, possibly extending through to the interior part of KwaZulu-Natal, and maybe, just maybe, even edging into Gauteng as we head into late Friday night and possibly early on Saturday morning. It'll be a warmer day throughout the Northern Cape, a bit of cloud overhead, 28 for Uppington and Prieska. Sutherland still dropping below zero overnight with a high of 19 degrees. We'll see a predominantly sunny and dry day for the Western Cape, still cool along the coast with highs in the teens, and maximum temperatures start to head into the low and middle 20s over the interior. Mostly clear and warm as we head towards the Eastern Cape with highs in the mid-20s over the interior. Mild as we head towards the coast, 21 degrees for East London and Port Alfred. A slightly warmer day for KwaZulu-Natal, partly cloudy for Pietermaritzburg and Durban at 23, with a high of around 30 for Newcastle and Ladysmith, and the possibility of thundershowers on Friday evening. A much warmer day with a recovery in those temperatures for Mpumalanga, 28 for Bombela and Secunda, with quite a bit of cloud, especially in the morning. Partly cloudy and warm as we head towards Limpopo, Polokwane at 28, 32 over the western part of the province. 29 for Ventersdorp and Mahikeng, with thundershowers expected over the western part of northwest. You'll also see thundershowers possible mainly over the northern and eastern part of the Free State. 22 for Zastron. In Gauteng, we're expecting a predominantly dry day, 27 for Johannesburg, with Vereeniging and Pretoria just shy of 30 degrees. Now on the weekend, we're expecting mild and sunny weather for Cape Town. Temperatures temperatures still stay warm with dry conditions in the northeast. Thundershowers extend from Kimberley through to KwaZulu-Natal. And on Sunday, we'll see that over the central and southeastern parts with the possibility of rain for Mbombela 29. That's all from the Weather Centre for now. Have a great night.
All right, thank you so much, Candice, for that update weather-wise. Now, clubbing has reached new lows thanks to a one-of-a-kind underwater dance floor event in Italy. Hundreds of music fans descended into the world's deepest swimming pool in Padua over the weekend for a multi-sensory experience. Performing live from an underwater viewing tunnel, artists played their beats through a sub-aqua sound system while partygoers wore diving gear and turned the pool into a dance floor. Okay, here's our headlines for tonight. Former President Jacob Zuma granted leave to appeal 10 million rand legal cost order. Okay, that was our top story. For me and the team, have a fantastic evening. Good night.